and welcome to the Westway Man Cave for another edition of a talk through the Kilmarnock music scene. Today we welcome one of our oldest friends and a stalwart of the Killie music scene, former drummer of the System, Burning Midnight Buskers, the Longhorns, amongst many others, and now plying his trade with the Westway Allstars. We have Mr. Paul John McHolland. Welcome, Paolo.
Thanks very much, guys, and can I begin by saying thank you for bringing me here today. It was very kind of you. I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I think it's just a great thing that we're able to recall the memories and the time and the effort and the energy you've put into this. It's great, so I'm grateful to be invited today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Paul, what was your first musical memory?
Joey Ramone. I mean, me and Titch, we were only 12 years old, and we used to go to Glasgow. Titch was a very colourful character, vibrant guy, and he was really into music, and so he said to me one Saturday, do you want to go up to Glasgow? And there was a shop, I think it was called Listen, and it was John, the guy from from the Exploited, he worked there. So we went up and we were just exploring all the records, and then while there we said, oh look, the Ramones are playing the Apollo. So we bought tickets to go and see the Ramones, and then we went up to see them at the Apollo, and it was just incredible. I mean, 12 years old, arriving in Glasgow, and then we went round the side of the Apollo, and this minibus pulls up, and all of a sudden the Ramones walked out, and we just saw Joey Ramone. He was a big guy, but I mean, he was like 6 foot, and only when I met up with Titch recently, he told me, he goes, do you know, remember? And he said, like, Johnny Ramone, they were all talking to us, and they were giving us plectrums, and they were talking away to us, and we just thought, what an experience, because you think now, you know, the Ramones have become quite an iconic band, not just in terms of their music, but even fashion. People talk about them and their music has endured. But for me, being 12 years old and seeing them at such an iconic venue like the Apollo, so I guess that probably instilled in me, you know, a sense of music and everything that's involved with it, the drama, the mystique, everything that flows from it. So it was incredible. So yeah, I guess Joey Ramone was my first musical memory. Actually, Ramones.
It's quite interesting you mentioned Titch, because you both obviously became really good drummers, because Titch's a great drummer as well. Mm-hmm. Aye, that's quite a cool story, actually.
It is, actually, and to be honest, to sort of square the circle, I had caught up with him recently because he's now playing with the Longhorns, who are back playing again, and he's playing with Rumblefish, which were bands that I played with as well. And there was a guy who was playing at St Luke's. It's a guy called Judy McPherson, and he comes from, and it's a brilliant place. You know, you think he could go home Kilmarnock. He comes from Broken Arrow in Oklahoma. You think, what a brilliant name, right? So he's a really cool guy, and he writes fantastic music, rhythm and blues, just really, really good. A kind of modern day sort of rock and roll star. So we went to see him at St Luke's, and we were there, we're outside, and that's what I said to him. I goes, God, Tess, when you think about it, the last time me and you went to see a band in Glasgow was the Ramones 45 years ago, and here we are again in Glasgow to see another band. So that was really nice, and it was really, you know, it was just good being with him again, seeing that, you know. And I think, Davey, from a kind of friendship point of view, it was just nice to be able to do that and go and see a great band. And being back in St Luke's, it was great because the Westway Allstars, having played there in December, and being in the venue, and people talk about St Luke's being a great place. So having played there with the men that couldn't hand, it was great to get back to see, and Judy McPherson was
that's the first I've heard of the Westway playing there. I didn't know you played there.
They don't
He's never missed.
They don't like to talk about it too much.
If you get a chance, there's this thing that's called social media, right?
All right, okay.
And there's a platform called Facebook. And if you ever get a chance, look at it, on your phone.
Okay.
If you've got and if you see on it, there's the Westway Kilmarnock music scene. Okay. I'm pretty sure if you scroll down,
I'll have a look at that.
I think you should.
I'll get one of my kids to show me how you work.
I'd commend it to you. It's more for the young people.
That's me.
Apart from the Ramones, Paul, see when you were young, what kind of things did you listen to? What was your influences?
Well, it's interesting because you had said to me, do you want to go to like, the Rebellion Festival and what have you know? And I had said to you, I was never really into punk. But probably the closest I had to that was the Ramones, because people would say the Ramones were almost like surf punk, but all my musical influences were rock and roll. It was born out of, you know, that kind of genre. First album I ever bought was Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly Lives. So I was always influenced by like Buddy Holly, even like Elvis. And I love that. I mean, if you get a chance to see the new Elvis film, people just think of Elvis in Las Vegas, but he was a real blues guy. He loved the blues, he loved rhythm and blues, he loved that kind of whole scene, and it was him that generated a whole music. So for me, probably rock and roll, even like Buddy Holly, Danny and the Juniors, all the kind of great rock and roll bands for that era. I think that's what probably instilled in me that kind of sense of rhythm and blues that probably moved on into the drums, because of that kind of the drum beat, you know, was founded on that. So yeah, probably rock and roll.
So you might have just answered my next question. Why the drums, and how long did it take you to become competent on them?
Well, to be honest, I never ever really decided to be a drummer or to play the drums. But there's a guy, Steve Jobs, the guy who founded Apple. If you get a chance, there's a clip on YouTube. It's phenomenal, and it's called the Stanford Commencement. And he talks about his life and the things that he's done. And although he was a really, really successful guy, he was never motivated by money. But he said, he said, you can only join the dots looking back. And I think now, looking back, although I didn't pick the drums, you know, it just by chance was a guy from New Farm, Tony McIntosh, who said to me, there's a guy who's selling a drum kit. And I thought, all right, and it was like 50 quid. And I was working in Prestos. So I saved up the money to buy the drum kit. Remember getting it, taking it up to the room, started playing. And then I'd heard that Zib and Doogie were also playing. 5 weeks later, we got together, we did our first rehearsal 5 weeks after it.
What's your memories of the early days with the system?
He's interviewed George from the No Men,
Yeah.
and he'll tell you as well, the early memories were walking through New Farm with a wheelbarrow, carrying a drum kit, because and George used to help us.
He did mention it,
He
didn't
did, I mentioned it there, aye.
So
So
you opened the door for his rock and roll career.
that what he said, because he loved that.
Aye.
And I think probably when you look back at that time, you have to put it into the kind of historical context of New Farm, because a bit like the immigrants that move, you see Australia, it's a new country. New Farm was the first generation of people that came there, because everybody that grew up there was the first generation, so everybody was connected to there. And I think that's probably why today people from New Farm still know each other and still remember it, because we all grew up together. And I think, you know, I had special memories at the James Hamilton. I always thought it was a great school. I remember getting it built, and I remember we used to go over there at lunchtime and hang around it. And you don't know this, Kirky, but I used to sneak into some of the classes and kid on I was a pupil there. You know, because
I must have heard of somebody sneaking
I
in.
know. Just because I think that I had a bit of an aura about it looking back at the James Hamilton Academy. Everybody was just really cool. And then for us to get to play there, you know, and I think everybody thought it was a buzz, because nobody ever played gigs at that age. You know, we were all just young, we were teenagers, and nobody had ever heard of a band playing at a disco in New Farm. And everybody used to go to the Jimmy Disco because it was like an iconic place. Everybody went. And I think, you know, it was incredible. And I think everybody had been talking about it. And I still remember that night when I was going there, and we were all, well, nervous, but, you know, it was a mixture of nerves and excitement. And I remember going on, and the Ramones, and we started with Blitzkrieg Bop, and the opening song was New Farm, Let's Go instead of Hey Ho, and the place just erupted. I don't mean if I could throw it back at you, Kirky, you would have been there, so you would have seen it that night. So I don't know what you remember.
No,
would have been.
it was like, I just thought, this is crazy, because I mean the place was absolutely packed. And you knew everybody there. Everybody was going to the same thing. I just thought it was a crazy night, because it was that busy.
How was it?
Again,
I don't know if it was. Did you play it a couple of times, Jimmy?
We played it twice. We played it in the June.
I think I was at
The December one.
Aye,
and that was even wilder.
There was one where wee Barry jumped up on the stage. I can't remember. It must have been the second one.
it must have been near the miners' strike, because I remember Steely shouting out, "This one's for the miners."
Because somebody jumped up on this. I'm sure it was wee Barry, and I remember it was mobbed. I can't remember who I went with, and I remember going along. And at that time, I think we were just, and I was just kind of getting together with Harkey to start playing, and I was thinking, oh, this kind of whetted my appetite. I thought, I can do that. I can do this, because you weren't sure, you know, at that age, but I don't think I can do this. Really kind of. So I think maybe Paul started my rock and roll career as well. Yeah.
Possibly a trailblazer. But
He's definitely well in Kilmarnock, 100%.
you think so?
Oh, absolutely. Aye.
I think probably because
For guys our age.
I think probably because we were the first to do it at that age.
You know, definitely.
And again, I mean, it all goes back to Douglas, you know, and sort of his musical genius. Because at that time, people were talking about Douglas. They're going, there's this guy from New Farm that plays the guitar, but he can play Fields of Fire, but he can play it with the guitar around the back of his neck. And people were going to his house to watch him doing it, you know. And Douglas was just such a trip. I mean,
because I knew Dougie in Kilmarnock for playing football with Pearson Park when we were at primary school. You know, and then folk were saying this boy playing guitar and all that, and I was like, who is it? It was Dougie Adam. I was like, Dougie played football with the West Germany top boy. Surely no. And then what a guitarist, you know.
I think it wasn't just a guitarist. I think it was just, you know, because people didn't really recognise Douglas as being like a musician, you know. And there is a kind of thing in music, they say that some people, when they go on stage, when they come alive, and there's a persona and there's a dimension to them that you don't always know.
I had that.
You know, he had that, David, and it's a bit like Jimi Hendrix, you know, and I know I wouldn't put him in the same genre, but people say like Jimi Hendrix, Chuck Berry, you know, Eric Clapton. There's certain people, just when they come on stage, they come alive. And Douglas certainly had that. And I mean, I was fortunate to witness that. You know, I mean, some of the gigs, I remember the night when we played at the Magnum, that's a bit of stone in itself, because that's when we were on STV that night, and, you know, actually live on STV News, because it was Brendan.
We were going down to the gig, if we were on the gear wheels, and we were going to a shop that had a television, it was a television show, so we were standing looking through the window of the television show, remember it?
And I remember, because remember it was the old blue A1 buses that used to get to go in, and we just get the bus, and we go off the bus, and I remember we were thinking over some tea, and it was like, people say you're 15 minutes of fame, and there was somebody in the shop saying, Mum, that's the guys that were on the TV tonight. Well, young boys from New Farm. But that in itself was an amazing experience, because I don't think there was many bands that played live on STV.
No. And Jim White introduced it.
And Jim White from Sky introducing us, you know. And so at that time, you know, it was just a great thing. And we were very lucky. And I think probably the influence of Stuart Smith, because he knew a lot of people as well, you know. So he was able to sort of, you know, do things for us, and he helped us when we recorded the single. But yeah, I think, looking back, I think it's because we were young, and I think, you know, with the naivety of youth, you don't really think too much about it. And I think because we had done that gig, and we thought, if we can do this, we can try anything.
The funny thing about it was, Brendan was on getting interviewed by Jim White, and me and Wally Fraser were going up to Kilmarnock. That's what Brendan came for. We were going up to Kilmarnock to meet Jim Prime that played the keyboards with Deacon Blue. So we walked into the pub, and Brendan was sitting in the corner with his self, and I goes, Brendan, how you doing? He goes, how you doing? Where do I care? I goes, I seen you on the telly. And this was like 25 years later. And he goes, and you remembered?
How could you forget? It was part of what iconic youth.
So Paul, tell us, what's your favourite places to play back then and now?
When you think of places to play, I mean, again, we were fortunate because we played the Barrowlands with the Alarm, and we played the Town and Country Club, and we played the St Luke's. But for me, it was the places that we played when we were young, like the Gateway. You know, the Gateway was an incredible place because it was like a melting pot of all the bands, and everybody would go there. And the Sunday night, Alec Pettigrew, he obviously decided that he wanted all the bands to play there. And again, I go back to my primary point that started, you know, Kilmarnock had an amazing music scene, and sometimes you forget, and I think a lot of people maybe out with Kilmarnock won't realise just how much we had and how lucky we were. And again, back to you guys, you know, all these years later, being able to record it and document it is good because you can think back on it. But I think the starting point, and David, you'll probably agree with me having played there, the Gateway was a really special venue because it was a Sunday night, and unfortunately for kids now, they don't have anything like that. Whereas a Sunday night, you went there, I think it was free to get in, the food was all very cheap, and there was bands playing
50p or something.
50p, and bands played every Sunday night. And the thing was, it was just that amazing range and genre of bands that played, you know, whether you had the Longhorns playing like rockabilly, you had the Legion, you had the Geisha Boys, you had, you know, last year's Men. There was, you know, so many bands that played there. And I think probably for me, the gig that stood out, and I know that you'll be speaking to him shortly, was a tribute night for Harky. That was a really special night, you know, because it just felt because everybody get together that night, and it was just like the Kilmarnock music scene, everyone coming together and using music as a forum and as a way to connect everybody. So I guess for me, probably the Gateway, the Jimmy, because we played there, the old Jimmy, because that was a great venue as well, you know. And I suppose Baker's as well, it holds, it's gigs I think that hold special memories for you. And for me, it was probably playing Baker's again with Zibandoogie, with the Modern World, because that was a very, very special night, because we played New Farm when we were only 16, and as you said, Dave, it was a really busy night, and it was great. But then we went to London, we all went our separate ways, we all did our own thing. Me and Doogie still played in various bands, and Zib didn't. But then for him to come back, and we had said, look, we're going to do this gig, and it was the Modern World, and it was just really nice to be back playing there again and playing with Zib and Doogie. And I think because it was so busy, you know, but I think that wasn't just because of us, it was because of the Jam were a really, really popular band, and it was a great night. So I think that was just a great venue to have played. For us, having played together at 16 and then almost 40 years later, I've been able to play together again. And I remember when we were downstairs, and I think the Stumblers, they played with us that night, and Barry from the Longhorns, I think he played a solo slot. Right? But it was so busy, and I remember we going upstairs and they're saying, you can't go on the stage. What do you mean? They're going, it's too busy, it's too crowded. We had to get around the side and walk through the front to get in. And I think for me, it was just really nice for Zib.
And it was a winter's night that night, and I remember walking round, Ken and Zib going, this guitar's going to get a tune. Because it's red hot in there. We've come out into the freezing cold to walk round to get to the stage.
Right, I suppose there's photographs down the stair that night.
I think there is.
Now, you gave in fact, Legions' first ever gig was supporting the Burning at the time at the Gateway. Because you phoned me up and says, Dave, you ready to get gigged in the rehearsal? And I was, I don't know if I'm really ready, Paul. And you went, come on, you've got to just go, get on the horse and come on, just go and gig. I says, we're playing the Gateway it was first Sunday in December, I think it was. And this would be 83 or something. And he said, come on, just come. All right. But Davey, you've got to bring so many folk. He told me about 50 folk. And I went, and you went, I'm only kid doing. Put the phone down. I was like,
that's okay then. Aye.
Earlier in your career, Paul, with the System, you played Night Moves in Glasgow, and it was reviewed in The Sound as a national magazine. How did that come about?
That goes back to Stuart Smith, because it was the Dead Neighbours. And the Dead Neighbours were a band for Grangemouth near Falkirk, and the guy that managed them was a guy called Robin Guthrie, and I think his sister was the singer of the Cogtow Twins.
Robin Guthrie was in the Cogtow Twins.
Is that what it was?
Aye, with Les Fraser.
Right, aye. Well, so I think one of the guys from the Dead Neighbours was his brother or whatever. So, and Stuart knew them. I don't know how he knew them, but they were a bit of a kind of rockabilly band or influenced by the Craps. Aye. So Stuart got us the gig there, and the guy who did, if I remember his name, it was John Dingwall, who you still hear is on Radio Scotland quite a lot, and he still chronicles all the Scottish bands and everything that play there. So we didn't even know that we were going to be reviewed, because I suppose we didn't think we were that good at that time, you know. We just thought we're just these wee young guys from New Fareham, but playing Night Moves. And again, Night Moves was such an iconic venue. You know the amount of bands that have played there over the years. And for us, again, just it's that kind of thing. You know, when you look at all the things that had happened, whether it had been playing at the Jimmy, whether it had been, been on STV, and played Night Moves. So we just turned up in the van and we just played. We never thought anything about it. And we just come off and remember loads of people from New Farm were there. And then, I don't know who it was. It might have been yourself, Quirky, who would have seen it first. But then, because everybody used to buy it, was like the NME, the Melody Maker, and the Sounds. They were the three musical papers that they always come out.
Of course, you did your Thursday routine, didn't you?
Go to Quirky's to read them for nothing.
and I could, as soon as I gave my work, Paul would disappear, and he would be straight out, I'd be having my dinner, and he'd be going, you never guess who's coming. I bought it so I could read it.
I'd be like, oh, hi.
We need to go to that, we need to go to this. I said, stop telling me, I like reading it myself.
So you might know the answer better, because I didn't know, but we were in Sounds, but then all of a sudden we get this, and it was quite a nice review that the guy
was it? Yeah, was it a good review?
I think was it he compared us to the Alarm?
I read it recently. Did you show me recently with this?
I remember putting it on the
Westway.
And see, the week that he played Night Moves, the Red Hot Chili Peppers were on that week, you know, in that venue.
Well, you think that gives a sense of how iconic the venue was.
Exactly.
Look where they went on to do. Unfortunately,
their neighbours became band
Low
Life.
Low Life.
Dark Wave.
I think they kind of moved into that kind of sort of Depeche Mode type thing.
A couple of their songs in my Amazon music account, and I'm sure the singer passed away.
He died.
Died. Some great songs Low Life had were great. They were a really good band.
After a few name changes from the System, the Burning, and then to the Midnight Buskers, you released a 4-track EP. How did that come about?
Again, I've got to credit Stuart Smith, because he was a student, and at the time when you were a student then, you got your grant as a one-off payment. So he got an £800 grant, and he said, right, I'm going to give this to the band to record. So we went to Palladium Studios in Edinburgh, and I mean, what an experience that was. I mean, again, it's just things that happen you don't expect. We went in and the Bay City Rollers were there. Now you think of the Bay City Rollers, although some people might say, I don't mean this disrespectfully, a wee bit cheesy, but they were an iconic Scottish band.
Yeah.
You know, and loads of people, you know,
the Beatles of their time.
So they were. So they were, you know, a huge band. I see that they're now doing a musical tour, so people still remember them, Bye Bye Baby and what have you. But they were recording at the same time as well, so we're thinking, where's the Bay City Rollers? And we're recording beside them. And again, I've got to get back to Douglas, because it was Douglas that wrote most of the songs for the 4-track EP. And it's funny listening to it. I don't think it's dated. That was the single.
It's great songs, isn't it?
Isn't it, Davey? When you listen to it, A Child Cries, Forbidden Barriers, Promised Land, and Burning.
That's right.
And Zib wrote Promised Land.
It's great songs.
Aye.
Oh, they're well crafted songs. Again, I mean, he was a great songwriter.
I still got the single in it. I've got it in the house.
I've still there.
I think you signed it for me. I got it signed.
And again, I suppose it's that kind of ambition of youth where, you know, you think you can do anything, but not in an arrogant way. You just thought, let's just try it. And then because you remember the photograph that it's quite iconic as well. The guy with the hat, I think it's the guy from the Deep South praying, and then the cross on it, and then we had wrote the lyrics, so all the lyrics, and we'd put all the lyrics inside it, and
the photograph up at the Burns Monument, the 3 years.
That was the photograph for the back of it. But then, so we recorded it at Palladium Studios, and again, just to be ambitious, we said, where are we going to get it pressed? And we said, let's go to Abbey Road. We'll get it pressed at Abbey Road. So that was fine. So we went down there to do the pressing of it, and we got it done there, and obviously we crossed the zebra crossing and took the photograph of the Beatles there, you know. So I think of all the things, and of all the musical things we've done, that was probably the most special, because being 17 years old and making your own record, so to have been able to do that, to have recorded it in Palladium, and even when I think back, I mean, it was just such a unique experience. It was recorded in January, we were in Edinburgh, it's this kind of leafy woodland area. It was a guy who owned a house, he was quite a successful guy, so he turned it into the studio, And we just spent the weekend just like jamming Dougie and watching Douglas. That was really when he was in his moment. Just watching him putting the songs together. He would be saying to Zib, the two of them worked well together and they gelled and they were a good unit. But Dougie was probably the one, that crafted the ideals and crafted the songs and kind of defined how he wanted them to be written. And Zib, God bless him, who's not here anymore, he always acknowledged that. He always was aware of it. He always said, look, I'm so lucky to have played with Douglas. I'm so lucky to have had that time with him. And having recorded then was just unique. I mean, me and Kirky were talking about it last night. About Douglas, and there was a time he done the gig at Fanny by Gaslights, and he did that. I don't think you were there, Davey, but he did a gig on his own, and he wrote like 9 or 10 songs. And to have been there that night and watched Douglas play his own songs and play his own set was just phenomenal. I mean, I've been with him loads of times and watching him play. I mean, it's a shame, that he doesn't play anymore. And I always said my biggest regret about music, looking back, it was a great time. I've done other things, but I suppose my biggest regret that Douglas never made it, because I genuinely believe that of all of us and of all the bands, and I don't say that because I played with him, I just thought he was the most talented guy that deserved for his.
I think that's an argument. I think he was by far the most talented.
It was unbelievable.
Paul, you supported the Alarm Barrowland with the Midnight Buskers round about this time. Tell us a wee bit about that.
Again, that was phenomenal. And again, I suppose the influence of Stuart, he was able to get the gig. And you can imagine at that time, we're probably 17 years old. You're playing the Barrowlands and you're playing with the Alarm. We're thinking, that can't be right, like that.
And the Alarm were at the kind of peak of their powers then.
They were. And I think the band was at the Escape Club.
The Escape Club, aye. And they'd been on the Tube.
There's another phenomenal, isn't it? We think of what you're doing here with all this music. The Tube was an essential part of that, because Friday night, that's what you did. You went home, 5:30, you watched the Tube, bands like the Redskins, the amount of bands that were on it. Model Army, the Alarm were on it, they were who were phenomenal.
And I'm going to call this a pair of tubes, but I wouldn't let us.
So having been there, I think just going to play there, it just seemed, and I think because of the iconic ballroom, that the way it shaped out, having just been there, I think you don't really take it in at the time, probably a mixture of residual nerves and excitement. So it almost, as like you said, like playing with the men that couldn't hang, it goes by in a flash, it just happens so quick. But I think for us, Callum Lennon driving up in the van, you were there, and my young brother Brian was there. It just felt amazing. See, driving up to the Barrowlands that night, and you're just seeing the Barrowlands and the lights, and you just think, God, we're playing here tonight. It was just phenomenal. And then just going on, and it's a bit like, I would compare it to when we played the Town and Country Club with the Alarm, and I remember Douglas going on stage first, because we said, right, what we'll do is, with this song, Loyal to the Bank of America, from the R.E.M. song, but it started with a kind of guitar intro, and it was this kind of really nice guitar tune. And we said, right, Douglas, you should go on stage first. So Douglas just walks on stage, picks up the guitar, starts playing this guitar bit for about half a minute, and then we just walked in and we did the beat to go on and played. So great memories, Kirky, fantastic.
The band moved to London 86, 87. How did that go?
Well, that's part of your lived experience. There's a book.
Well, I hear your version.
There's a book by John O'Farrell called The Best a Man Can Get, right? And it's a story of these 4 guys who have got lives, but what they do is they escape their lives and they all kid on that they're working, but they don't. They meet up in a house and spend all day in the house together, right? And that's what London was like for us, because we were young, we just arrived, and we just had the most amazing experience. We just arrived in this street, Ellswick Road, and it really was, a cultural mix. There was guides for the Caribbean, there was people from all over, and we were just these wee Scottish guys that arrived in a white van. And it was interesting how we got there, because me and Zib used to go busking every Saturday in Kilmarnock, and I think we were probably entrepreneurs before our time, because nobody had ever done busking before and it had never ever been permitted. So me and Zib went busking, and because it was a unique thing, people would just come and they would throw in £1 here, and a lot of mums would say to the kids, don't throw that in. I don't really felt sorry for us, but we would be earning maybe £20, £30 a day. But then one day the police come up not the band, and they said, pulling the red lights, and they said, I'm sorry, but you don't have a permit for this. And I was like, well, we'll just see about that. You know, I don't know whether maybe that was the young lawyer in me thinking, well, we'll need to see if we can challenge orthodox thinking. So we went to see Gus Steele, who was a Labour councillor, and we said, look, Gus, remember us, we played at New Farm at the Jimmy, we're busking on a Saturday in the town. He goes, Paul, as to the spirit of the town, I'm going to put it before the local committee. And then he gave us a letter. So we had Labour Party endorsed permission and authority to go busking. So the next time the police came, we've got permission for this. So we earned probably £20-30 a day, which was then a lot of money. And we used that time to save the money. As soon as we get £300 together, we bought a transit van, put all the gear in the van, and hightailed it to London. And when we arrived there, it wasn't just us. It was, I mean, the people you met, Tim Roth from Reservoir Dogs, he lived round the corner. Remember that big house, the Rainbow House? The amount of people that we met there. And I think that's really just that sent us on the journey.
What are your memories of the last ever Midnight Buskers gig when you returned home for a kind of homecoming? It took place at the Labour Club.
It did. I don't know who organised that. I'm not sure how it came about. I think and that was the last gig that the band
was
did,
the last,
wasn't it? Aye. I think probably tinged with a mixture of sadness because we didn't know at the time it was the last gig. We had been in London and then coming back to play, and Kevin joined us.
That's right.
Kevin from last year's Men and Tosha. Aye, he joined us as well. Aye, so I think the memories of it was good because, maybe as you'll know again, I mean, that went on to become another iconic venue. Look at the amount of bands that played there and the amount of, you know, so I mean, I think it was a special memory because Kevin joined us, and I think having been in London, it was just great to be back playing in Kilmarnock again.
And then you joined the Longhorns. How did that come about?
Well, that came about probably for a whole host of reasons. Again, it goes back, David, to your original question, Titch, because Titch played with the Longhorns, and I was in London, but then Zib and Doogie decided to go back to Scotland. But I was really enjoying London and I thought it was a great place to live, so I had no intention of going back home. So they went back up the road, and then I wasn't playing with anyone. But then Barry from the Longhorns, he got in touch with me, said, we're going to London, but Tish doesn't want to come. He's got a girlfriend and he's happy here, so would you want to join us? And I said, absolutely. So then, similarly, the Longhorns came to London without a drummer. I joined them. And then, if I thought the journey and the adventure with Midnight Buskers was good, the Longhorns just took it up another level because we just had some amazing times. We played for, 3 years there. And we were all working during the day. I was working in construction. And I remember just one night I was walking home and I passed this venue and I'm going, that's the Marquee. It was in Water Street. So I went in there and all of a sudden there was all these Scottish people, right? I get nicknamed the Mac Marquee because of the huge Scottish connection that was there. Zard was a doorman, was for Baillieston, Paul McElvoy, he was for Glasgow. So I was like, you looking for any staff? And they said, yeah, when could you start? I goes, just now. And he goes, right, we need someone tonight. So I got a job there. I was working behind the bar there, and from that, the amount of gigs that we got was unbelievable. I mean, you know, we got to play with Energy Orchard, who supported Steve Earle. You know, we got to play with Sons of the Desert. Paul gave us loads of gigs, but probably the most interesting one, although it wasn't a huge thing, there was a guy called Boris Grebenshikov, Russian guy, right? And it was the first ever gig in the West by a Russian artist, and the Longhorns were supporting them. And as you know, I wrote the book Tomorrow Remember Yesterday about it, but us being fiery and what have you, I remember at the time we didn't have a lot of money and we were all arguing, right? And we're like, who went to the laundrette today? We're like, you were meant to go. You were meant to go. So we ended up having this big argument and this big fight about what we're doing. And as I said there, before the first ever gig in the West by a Russian artist could ever take place, the more pressing issue of what the Longhorns were wearing to work next day had to be resolved.
Well, Kirk would be a tape.
I wish we had more time, Paul, but you're going to have to box all this up together. What's your memories of last year's Men, The Modern World and Rumblefish?
Good times and good friends. I think the difference with all of that was when we were younger and we played, we were all a bit earnest, we were all a bit trying to play, to make music, to make money, seeing it as something major. Whereas now, I think as you're older, you see it for what it is, and it's just good fun. It's just good times to play together, especially with the Westway Allstars. I probably enjoy that as much and more than anything because it's just an opportunity with friends to get together, have a bit of crack, have a few beers and enjoy themselves. So it makes it better because we're playing music, but we're playing with friends, so it makes for a very unique, entertaining and special time.
I've only ever been on stage once when I actually could sing for laughing. This was the noon, you were there. With last year's men, we played there regularly, and I'm singing away some class song or pastor, I don't know what it was. I'm singing away, giving it a roll, and I turned round, and there's Paolo playing the guitar, and wee Billy put on the drums.
That's right.
We're in video.
That's right, aye.
You just stood there like that.
I think it was Neuros, and it was sort of Fast and Furious, and Paul's going.
Aye, I know.
You would.
You mentioned there the Westway Allstars. How did that come about?
That came about purely by chance, more by accident than by design. And again, Davey can take some credit for this because Davey and Barry used to do the Hootenanny, and that was on at the Belfield Tavern. So again, that was another way of loads of bands connecting, getting together, having a fun night out. And I think it really just happened by chance because, and again, Kirky, we always said Kirky's somebody who has promoted and pioneered the music scene for many years. And I think a lot of people are pleased that that you now play in a band because you genuinely championed all the bands for good intentions and not for any self-interest or anything else other than you had just such a
love of music.
Yeah. Aye, a wonderful love of music, and you're always very kind in promoting other bands. So I was really pleased to join and get the chance to play with you. And it just started off, it was good, like most of these things, they just start off as ideals, but then they develop a bit.
It's just a good fun night.
And from that there, we played, we did a couple then, there was the next Hootenanny, we'll do it from there. Then I think Campbell would get involved, Barry would get involved, and then we get the opportunity to do the gigs. From that, we end up playing with the Rosillos, Faith Fight for the Rosillos, playing with the men that couldn't hang. So these things, you don't look too far ahead, but it was, it's from small acorns, big trees and all that, and it was great.
It's fun and you enjoy it, what's not like.
Exactly, David.
How has music changed you?
I don't think it has. I think it's just been part of my life. I think it was something that I did when I was young. I was glad to have done it. I think, I suppose, going back and growing up, music was part of our life in New Farm Loch. Because, and goes back to my dad, I think he was always of the view that he wanted us to make the most of our lives and to enjoy it. So what he would always say is, the weekend, bring all the boys up to the house and we would play ska, reggae, punk, we'd play all these sort of things of music. So from a very early age, we get that sense of music as a way of escapism, but a way of enjoyment, a thrill, something, to take away from the humdrum of modern life. And I think it instilled in me that sense of, go and enjoy your life, make the most of it, as David said earlier. It's funny, and it's just, I know it's a sideline, but I think it's quite true. I had my nephew staying with me last week, Jaden, and there's a clip on social media, and it's a wee guy and a wee girl staring at a mirror, but it's their old person staring back at them. I don't know if you've seen it, and then it says there, it's a short journey, you should enjoy it. So last week, I was taking my nephew up to the school, and it's St Joseph's, where I used to go. And as I was dropping off, I thought, my God, the last time I was here was 42 years ago. And you think, just like that, 42 years ago. And I think it reinforces that idea. It is a short journey and you should enjoy it. And it's, as David said earlier, and it's that point, and music is such a huge part of it. It connects all of us. It forms part of our friendship. I think it embeds in us a sense of music, gives us fun, and gives us the friendship. If we didn't have music, we probably wouldn't be doing this today.
Exactly. You're approaching 60. What advice have you got for a teenage Paul McHolland?
Stay away from Davy Kirk.
No, I would say it's a hell of a ride. Hang on to your hat and enjoy it. You're going to have fun.
Good answer. Paul, what's been your musical highlights?
there isn't really any one that stands out. I think it's just a whole series thing. Do you mean like bands that I've went to see or bands that I've played?
Musical highlights mean anything.
Probably musical highlights, I would think, well, again, you're our oldest and dearest friends. Going to Milton Keynes for the longest day.
Us three, Stuart.
The three of us. That was an incredible experience.
What,
Some of
That is the best lineup you'll ever see.
see.
40 years ago.
You think the Faith Brothers, Spear of Destiny,
Billy
the
Bragg,
Ramones, and R.E.M.
the Ramones,
just phenomenal that
R.E.M.,
day.
U2.
And the Ramones, and U2. So you think to have seen all of them, 5 of them together, obviously I've spoken about my own band, but other things that I've seen, I would say, that was just an incredible day. It was just phenomenal. Remember, and again, Ozzy, who's just passed, Black Sabbath were playing. Remember all the rockers were all travelling down.
They were going to Nebworth, and we were going to Milton Keynes.
So that, probably as well, seeing the Alarm at Night moves when Don Letts had the t-shirt on last night in the Clash, because I would think for the Alarm, who grew up with the Clash and who loved them, you're thinking that now, Mick Jones, it's his new band, and they're playing.
That was the first ever.
That was the first ever. And they come on and they played Medicine Show and they were doing the Hitler, and that became the formula and the bedrock for hip-hop music. So everybody would think, here's the Clash, here's Mick Jones, he's doing this stuff here, which was phenomenal. And then you're thinking, how do you beat that? But see that night when the Alarm come on and see when they started with Majority.
The
place,
they were in fire.
the place, I've never seen a start like that in my life. It was almost like there was lightning rods going off in your head, how powerful it was. I actually watched it on YouTube just to see if it was that good, and it was incredible.
What's your plans for the future, musically?
I don't really have any. I don't really have. I think I've never ever had any plans. I've never really formulated a plan about joining this band, what I was going to do next. So I've never really had any kind of grand plan. I've been very fortunate that when I stopped playing music, I was able to go on and do other things. Had a very fortunate life. So I think if I don't do anything else, I'd quite happily say I've done everything I want to do, and I'm very happy.
Last question, Paul. Give us a quote. You're a man of many quotes.
You did, and this is one that I thought. This is one that I did thought about, and I think.
And you wrote it down.
No, it's not. Well, I can say a quote that would be, you could say I talked about Steve Jobs when talking to the music.
Show the camera the book.
This is a book called Tomorrow Remembered Yesterday, but I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about a guy.
And who wrote the book, Paul?
Me. Very shy. But the reason I don't, because we're talking about music there. I don't want this isn't something that I wrote. There was a guy called Tony Parsons, who was a musical journalist, who wrote for NME, right? And he wrote a brilliant article, right? And he allowed me to put this in the book. And I thought, as I said, because to go back to the beginning,
Did you ask this domestic?
I wrote it on GQ, and he allowed me to use this for the book. And as I said earlier, for sort of chronicling the music scene, I just think that this quote ties into everything that you're doing, and I think it probably nicely and accurately sums up what you're doing. So, Tony Parsons, if you get the chance to watch this on YouTube, your story made it to here. So, embrace the passing summers, learn to grow old gracefully, and a man will have the time of his life. You can never compete with youth, but you can be its complement. But I saw the Clash's Joe Strummer just before he died, a man I had known for 30 years, and as he hugged me for the last time, I was overwhelmed by how wonderful Joe looked at 50. Physically not so different from that roaring boy of 22, but calmer, at peace with himself and the world, wryly amused at life's great adventure. He was a working musician, doing something that he loved and that he planned to do as well as he could for the rest of his life. Strummer died years too soon, but getting old fitted him brilliantly. Strummer was growing old the way Frank Sinatra grew old, the way Jack Dempsey grew old, the way Muddy Waters grew old, the way old bluesmen grew old. There was a nobility about it. Children don't stop you from growing old. They make it possible. Growing old gracefully means being able to look yourself in the eye and saying, we did okay, didn't we? Your younger self would have laughed at all of that, of course, but now you can smile back at him.
Paul McHolland, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Barry.